Hey everyone, so we are live. Yes, we're live. According to YouTube. Dunno. Just waiting for the thing to give me the go ahead. There we go. Yeah, do you know what? I can imagine him saying, blaming lefty lawyers. I can so see that happening. Woke lefty lawyers. I can see it. I can envision it happening. But yeah, it should be starting in a couple of minutes. Just waiting for this thing to really start. But I've got a couple of cool things for you guys. So finally got the PMQ's bingo. I've got the project I'm working on. One does not simply join the EU single market. So yeah, I've got that. I've got this great clip of Liz Truss. Let me pause this quick. Of saying this.
So I would strongly encourage the Irish TSOC to discuss this with the EU. So I would strongly encourage the Irish TSOC to discuss this with the EU.
The hell's a TSOC? What does that mean?
So I would strongly encourage the Irish TSOC to
might do a video called Liz Truss and the Irish TSOC.
So I would strongly encourage the Irish TSOC to
I mean, that's a gaffe. I mean, that's the reason why I think she'll struggle in a leadership contest, and also struggle, against any competent person because of this stuff.
I would strongly encourage the Irish TSOC to discuss this.
You know, she struggles through things that aren't scripted. She doesn't do enough reading. I think that's her main problem, and she seems to lack some confidence without really going into psychoanalysis. Who's calling me a closet Tory? How dare you? How dare you? How do you spell this word? My boy, friend from school. But yeah, I saw this meme as well. Is people are calling me boring. Any ideas to excite the voters? More union flags, 3-word slogans, release some actual exciting policies. Yeah, I miss this meme format. This meme format is so great. It's one of my favourites. Stumbled in and heard, the Irish TSOC. The recession is getting worse. We'll all end up making. Yeah, it feels that way. The EU's restarted legal action against us as well. I'm going to cover that. I'm going to hopefully get that out for 2:15 today. 1 second. I'm going to try and get that out for 2:15 today. We'll see what happens. But the EU is continuing their legal action against us. So that's fun. But yeah, I'm sure the Irish TSOC will have a lot to say about that. Not much more I want to say apart from I want this thing to get started finally. We'll go for till about 1 p.m. 1 p.m. Yeah, I think 1 p.m. will be fine. See if we get any interesting questions. So I'm just interacting with people on Twitter. Yeah, it really is. But yeah, let's see. Phonics not her strong point, but then again, we have problems with local descriptive words. I mean, she's just funny in it. She's just absolutely ridiculous. She needs to do a lot more. I think a lot more work. Her main issue is that her remit is that broad that she'll never do anything right. I mean, there are people still trapped abroad. I think in Iran, and also I saw one recent story of someone in Cairo, in Egypt. And Liz Truss has done nothing about it. I'm not sure what this new Tory thing about trying to blend in with the seats is like. Maybe you're too embarrassed to show your face, but you have to be in PMQs, so you try and blend in with the cushions. I don't know what that's all about. Seeing that, I think she's the third politician that we've seen with that kind of outfit. that are trying to blend in. Okay, we've got our PMQ's bingo ready as well. So I've got woke lawyers. I've just nicked that from someone. Fastest growing economy. We need to move on. Blaming Labour for stuff that happened last time they were in charge. Fastest vaccine rollout. Rwanda deportations are legal. Level up. Northern Ireland Protocol breach legal. Labour will take us back into the EU. So that's my kind of PMQ's bingo. So we're going to see which of these actually pops up. If you guys want to get involved, go for it. But yeah, we're going to hopefully get this thing started. Live in 24 minutes. What? That's not right. Oh, what the hell? It started. That's weird. Oh, it literally just started.
So nature is critical to achieving net zero. Can my right honourable friend update the House as to his ambitions for biodiversity at the COP15 summit?
President.
Mr. Speaker, we are working very closely on this issue, and we want to ensure that there is a new frame.
It's a dig. It's a dig at human rights lawyers. Woke lefty lawyers is a dig against human rights lawyers, not really against Starmer. Starmer's
Focus
not really woke
on
or lefty, really.
Reversing deforestation, supporting biodiversity, and we are continuing to press forward on that.
Can these people stop banging on the table? You realise, like, it just muddles the audio? Like, how stupid are you guys?
I'd like to remind members of the service which is being held at St Margaret's today at 1 o'clock to commemorate the 40th anniversary, the end of the Falklands War. I hope as many members as possible will be able to attend. I'd also like to point out that... Just a minute.
Apologies.
I'd also like to point out, not this sign language, that the sign language interpretation of PMQ proceedings is available on Parliament Live TV. Now,
does anyone need the sign language?
We start with questions to Prime Minister Mike Wood.
Question number 1, sir.
What the? I mean, look how gas this guy's to ask a question. Honestly, it's ridiculous.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Mike Wood.
Government support for households is greatly appreciated, but high
It's not enough, you joke.
energy costs are also causing massive problems for businesses, and particularly energy-intense manufacturing. Will the Prime Minister support the Repowering the Black Country initiative, backed by the LEP and by Andy Street, to reduce reliance on fossil fuels, and will he meet with me to look at how the Black Country can be a pilot project to decarbonise, reduce costs and protect the region's manufacturing jobs?
Well, I thank my honourable friend that he's a great champion for Dudley and for the Black Country, and in addition to the £1,200 for the 8 million most vulnerable households that were
I don't know who Biggins is.
providing £400 to help everybody with the cost of energy, Mr. Speaker. We're supporting the Black Country with cost-efficient energy infrastructure, and the region has already received £1.5 million to develop a cluster plan for decarbonisation.
We now come to the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
PMQs, it's starting a bit earlier now. I thought it was meant to start at 12:10. I'm a bit confused. Mother quit a job because it's too hard for her to work. It's more financially viable to be on benefits than what. You know what? I've seen a mass exodus of essential workers. So yeah, no, 100% I get what you're saying.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I pay tribute to all those who served in the Falklands? My uncle was among them, serving on the HMS Antelope when it went down. Thankfully, he made it back, but too many serving in that war didn't, and we remember them all. Mr. Speaker, Britain is set for lower growth than every major economy except Russia. Why?
That's true. I covered that.
Prime Minister.
That's a decent opening question. It's very open, but we're gonna see what Boris Johnson's excuses are. So not a bad opening question.
Mr. Speaker, well, I'll tell him. Mr. Speaker, actually, we are going to have, according to the IMF and the OECD, we are, in addition to the fastest growth in the G7,
Oh, there we go. Got one. Where is it? Fastest growing economy, fastest growing in the G7. I'm taking that one. Okay, where's the? Sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to do this on the fly. I've got this one. I've got that one. Give me another line. Sorry guys, it's going to be a bit touch and go. First time I've actually done this. Damn you, computer, do your job. There we go. I've got one. That's a mess, but you get my point.
Last year, we're going to have the second fastest this year, and we will return.
And what about next year?
To the top of the table, Mr. Speaker. But the reason, Mr. Speaker, other countries are temporarily moving ahead is, of course, because we came out of the pandemic faster than they did, because we took the right decisions to come out of lockdown, which he opposed, Mr. Speaker. And that's why, right now, Mr. Speaker, we have the highest number of people on payroll employment on record, Mr. Speaker.
I mean, the issue was that he let Johnson do that, really.
Mr. Speaker, he always likes to blame global forces, but global forces are just that, global. Everybody faces them. Britain isn't under crippling economic sanctions like Russia. No wonder he doesn't want to answer the question, why is the UK set for lower growth than every other major economy?
Well, yeah, you should quote the OECD figures for next year. That's the problem. I don't know what the IMF figures are for this year, but for next year it's at 0. And that's what Starmer needs to do. He keeps letting him get these easy wins.
Prime Minister! Mr. Speaker, I think everybody can see that I've just answered the question. Once again, he's guilty of what my legal friends call ignoratio elenchi. He's failed.
Should have had speaks in Latin.
Failed to listen to what I've actually said, Mr. Speaker. What would be useful in supporting the UK economy right now would be if the leader of the Labour Party ended his sphinx-like silence about the RMT strikes coming up in the course of the next couple of weeks. Will he now break with his shadow transport secretary and denounce Labour's rail strikes?
There aren't Labour's rail strikes, so they're workers striking for better pay. No, I don't agree with the tactics they use. They need to look at other countries and how they do rail strikes, like letting people on for free. That's probably the smarter way to do it, but you know.
He's in government.
Just to remind the Prime Minister, he seems to have gone. His Prime Minister's question is not opposition question. Keir Starmer.
He's in government. He could do something to stop the strikes, but he hasn't lifted a finger.
Finally, he's in government. You know, guy's showing some energy for once. He could do something here. He could intervene, but he's not.
I don't want the strikes to go ahead, but he does. He wants, Mr. Speaker, he wants the
Finally, something decent.
country to grind to a halt so he can feed off the division. And as for Mr. Speaker, as for his boasting about the economy, he thinks he can perform Jedi mind tricks on the country. These aren't the droids you're looking for. No rules were broken. The economy is booming. The problem is, the Force just isn't with him anymore.
There's a lot of Star Wars references there.
He thinks he's Obi-Wan Kenobi. The truth is, he's Jabba the Hutt.
Again, bro, no one under... Like, I'm not going to get these, but sure.
Last week, he stood there and boasted that we would continue to grow the economy. This week, it turns out, the economy shrank for the second month in a row. How does it help Britain to have an ostrich Prime Minister with his head in the sand?
Prime Minister, there he goes again, Mr. Speaker, running this country down. When
he's not running the country down. You are. That's the point. That's the point Starmer needs to make. I'm not running the country down. You are.
We've got the highest payroll employment.
Look, I want to hear the questions and the answers. And whether you like it, but I genuinely believe it, the public who watch it also want to hear both. Prime Minister.
I mean, no, one's full of lies.
I mean, Mr. Speaker, we've got lower unemployment than France, Germany, Italy, Canada. We've got the highest number of people in payroll jobs.
But the thing is, unemployment isn't the only metric of an economy. That's the problem. I'm gonna have someone actually, hopefully, do a video on that. I'm gonna talk to her about it soon. You need to really get on with that one. But you know, unemployment isn't the only metric for an economy. You know, certain countries have zero unemployment. You know, because they have slavery. Come on, man. Bozo's officially and factually running the country down. True that.
I've just said 620,000 more since records began. And he might like to know this, that just in the first 5 months of this year, this country has attracted, I think, £16 billion of investment in its tech sector. He doesn't...
And, you know, we're lower than France for foreign direct investment, so, yeah, that's great, isn't it?
Like these European comparisons, let's make it for him. 3 times as much as Germany, twice as much as France, Mr. Speaker. He should be talking this...
We're getting more foreign direct investment than France. I don't think that's actually true.
...this country up, not running it down.
That's the ostrich. He's not just denying how bad things are, he's actively making things worse. His 15 tax rises are throttling growth, and the director of the CBI is so fed up, he's reduced to saying, can we stop Operation Save Big Dog and move to action stations on the economy? Now, Mr. Speaker, we know what the Prime Minister says about British business in private. I think that's pretty unparliamentary.
F business, that's what he said.
But when did screwing business turn from a flippant comment into economic policy?
No, that goes off his jab last week where he talked about 24 hours in A&E was a TV show, now it's government policy. Not bad from Starmer. I think he's shown a lot more energy because people are calling him boring, which I think I'll cover at some point.
Well, Mr. Speaker, look, I just reminded the House of what's happening in Tech Week in this country, the massive investment that's coming in, helped, by the way, by this 130% super deduction for business investment that my right honourable friend, the Chancellor, has put in. Never forget, Mr. Speaker, that Labour, under Labour, taxes go up on businesses and on people.
That's awkward because, you know, highest tax bill since World War II. And also the fact that he's hiked corporation tax rate to 24%, so he's just lying again.
We're not only putting £1,200 more into people's pockets, we're having a tax cut worth £330. He talks about taxes, £330 on average for everybody who pays national insurance. Labour have already made spending commitments in this Parliament alone worth £94 billion more than the government is spending. That's 2,100...
Where are these spending commitments? I've not seen anything. I've not seen any of these spending commitments. Labour barely has a manifesto or any kind of election promises. What are you talking about?
£100 for every household in the country, Mr. Speaker. No wonder no Labour government has ever left office with unemployment lower than when they came in.
Mr. Speaker, 15 tax rises, and we're sat for the highest tax burden since rationing.
I saw that, Chris. I need to find that. I need to cover that one at some point.
The economy is booming when it's shrinking. He's game playing so much. He thinks he's on Love Island. Trouble is,
bro, like, no, stop it now. Stop with the pop culture references. Stop it.
Prime Minister, I'm reliably informed that contestants that give the public the ick get booted out. And it's not just low growth. He's also lost control of inflation.
Cringe.
He was warned about this last September. And what did he do? He dismissed it. He didn't act. He sat on his hands. Now prices are through the roof, and we're set to have the highest inflation in the G7. When will he accept he got it badly wrong when he claimed that worries about inflation were unfounded?
Prime Minister.
He did say that. I remember the journalist at the time did retweet it as well.
Mr. Speaker, we're helping people with the cost of living.
No, you're not.
With £1,200 on the 14th of July, the money will be going into people's bank accounts. Why can we do that, Mr. Speaker? Because we have the fiscal firepower to do it, because the economy is in robust shape, with record numbers of people in payroll employment, Mr. Speaker. And that is thanks to the steps that we took that he continuously opposed. And if he wants to, and I just remind Mr. Speaker, he has a chance. I won't say this interrogatively, Mr. He has the chance now to clear it up. He can oppose the Labour's rail strikes right now.
It's not, you know, leader of the opposition's questions, you dummy.
Say, he can disagree. He can disagree, and give him that opportunity. Let him disagree with the union barons who would add to people's costs in the coming weeks.
Union barons, you know, Jesus Christ, man. I didn't realise we're still kind of in this era of demonising unions. The unions are really weak as is. He did nick Labour's windfall tax idea, but the problem is that's all Labour had. So once they took the windfall tax, Labour were like, oh, see, we would have done it quicker. They had nothing else.
Mr. Speaker, I don't want the strikes to go ahead. He does so he can feed on the division. Mr. Speaker, they're making a lot of noise now, but I've got a long list here of what his MPs really think of him.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. This could be good.
Dragging everyone down. Who said that? Come on. Who was it said that?
Oh, do you know what he's doing? Do you know what he's doing? He's taken quotes that are unnamed, obviously, that MPs refuse to give their names to, and he's quoted. Oh, this is brilliant. But the thing is, Boris Johnson will probably pull the same stunt, but this is phenomenal. Oh my God, this is this guy actually has some energy today, and he's actually doing something productive. This is going to be brilliant. I'm hoping.
Authority is destroyed. Come on, hands up. Which of you was it? Which of you? Come on. Can't win back trust. Anybody owning up? You're very quiet now. Hands.
He's been keeping this one in the back pocket, hasn't he?
Mr. Speaker, my personal favourite.
Jeez, there's my boy, fam. There's my boy right there. Jeez, there he is, fam. The king.
Is this? This is a document circulated by his back.
Here you go, Chris.
Bench, in which they call him the Conservative Corbyn.
Yeah, exactly.
Prime Minister, I don't think that was intended as a compliment. Week after week.
I mean, to be fair, it's probably not the best tagline to go with from a person who is, not the most popular with the left wing of the party.
He stands there and spouts the same nonsense. The economy's booming. Everything's going swimmingly. The people should be grateful. But whilst he's telling Britain that we never had it so good, millions of working people and businesses know the reality. Britain's growth is going to be slower than our competitors and our inflation higher. A Prime Minister who sounds totally deluded.
Highest inflation in the G7, let's not forget.
Totally failing on the economy. Failing to tackle.
I think we need to get to the end of the question, but I'll just remind you, I will hear the end of the question in silence. Any more noise in this corner, there'll be another cup of tea early if we're not careful. Yes,
a Prime Minister who sounds totally deluded, totally failing the economy, failing to tackle inflation, failing to back business, failing to help working people through the crisis. And, Mr. Speaker, his big idea, go back to imperial measurements. He's got 80s inflation, 70s stagnation, now he wants 60s weights to complete the set. When is he...
Not bad.
Going to ditch the gimmicks and face up to reality that under him Britain's economy is going backwards.
Broke the microphone, the sound barrier a bit there, for the mic, but he's right. He's all he's got is gimmicks. He's not done much apart from the windfall tax and some of the direct payments. He's not done a lot to really help people in the country, has he? This was a much better performance from Keir Starmer, but he left too many open questions.
Let's see the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, a couple of quick points about Mr. Corbyn, the Right Honourable for Islington North.
Yeah, this was an issue mentioning Corbyn.
First of all, he tried repeatedly to get him elected as Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker. Secondly, speaking from experience, he's relatively dynamic by comparison with the Right Honourable gentleman.
Not wrong.
Mr. Speaker, dynamic and coherent.
Might be helpful if you speak to me. I'm struggling to hear because of the noise on both sides. So please, if you look to the chair, it'll be easier for both of us.
But what we're going to get on and do, Mr. Speaker, is continue to take the tough decisions to take this country forward, and decisions that are on the side of the British people, Mr. Speaker. They're blatantly on the side of the RMT union barons. When when there are some ticket offices that barely sell one ticket per hour, Mr. Speaker. We are on the side of the travelling public. By the way, he hasn't mentioned this, but they're on the side of the people traffickers who would risk people's lives at sea, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, that's a reference to. It's going to be a reference to.
And we are on the side of people who come here safely and legally.
I mean, Starmer's dropped the ball here because, again, I would have mentioned all of the lawbreaking. I would have said, look, the ECHR had to get involved to stop the deportation to Rwanda. They saw it as potentially legal. The EU are taking legal action against us. Boris Johnson's been found to have broken the lockdown rules. Does he actually understand how to follow the law? That's what I would have gone with, but, you know, he's not me.
Safely and legally, Mr. Speaker. They carp and snipe from the sidelines. That's what they've always done. We take the big decisions to take this country forward. And no matter how much Welly, his right honourable friend, the deputy leader, may ask him to apply, it doesn't matter how much Welly he pretends to apply, when that Welly, Mr. Speaker, is always on the left foot.
What the hell kind of final line was that? If that welly is on the left foot, what? That's, oh my god, people. He needs a ghostwriter, man. He needs a good ghostwriter. That was terrible.
Many areas like mine have already had massive new housing development with no commensurate increase in general practice.
Sorry. Point of order. The Honourable Lady's been here for so long, she should also know that points of order can only come at the end. Sandra Sullivan.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it was a crap line.
Many areas.
I think this guy might actually have a decent question, and I actually want to hear it. So, without at risk of sounding like the speaker, can we just hear what this brother has to say?
Have a conversation later, but certainly it's not.
Duke, please, language.
Andrew Sullivan.
Many areas like mine have already had massive new housing development with no commensurate increase in general practice capacity. In one of my surgeries, with double the recommended number of patients per GP, a bowel cancer diagnosis of a 51-year-old father of 4 was missed and is now terminal. Getting this right is a life and death issue. So will the Prime Minister make sure that parts of the country that have already had massive new housing growth get the commensurate increase in general practice capacity that is only right and fair?
That was actually a good question. That they're increasing the amount of housing, but the amount of GPs is not increasing. And, you know, obviously, according to him, the amount of people registered at at their GP practice, his local one, has doubled the amount that is recommended or safe. Which, you know, that's a good question because it's true. It's happening everywhere. My local GP closed down. It's reopened now. I think some new doctors have taken it over. But it was a point where, you know, they were one of the only 2 GPs in the area. And these GP practices are very small. They only have 1 or 2 doctors. And a lot of these doctors are being replaced by some sort of physical practitioners or something like that, where they're not fully qualified GPs and are only meant to operate under GP supervision. You know, they have more nurses there as well, which, you know, it's not what, you know, when you're ill, when you're really ill, you know, you want to go see a doctor and it's just not available at the moment. So he's got a great question there. Lucy, that's a bold statement right there. Let's see how that plays out.
Minister. Yes, Mr. Speaker, and of course we've increased the numbers of doctors by 6,000, up to 1,200 more GPs since this.
How many have retired? How many have left the industry because you guys keep going after them? How many? The net amount? What's the net amount?
Time last year, 11,800 more nurses, but we must make sure that areas, particularly where areas of new sensitive development is going in, that there are the infrastructure services, particularly medical services, that they.
How they should have it is per capita. You need a certain amount of doctors, you need a certain amount of hospital space, etc. A certain amount of medical professionals. That's how it should be. So per capita, you have a certain amount of radiologists, etc. That's how it should be done. When you want to increase housing capacity, there should be money going to the council or to the government so they can sort stuff like that out. But it's just simply not happening.
They need, the NHS has a statutory duty to take account of population growth. I know he's met my old friend, the health secretary.
The Tories have ignited the donors. I want to talk about that hopefully at some point during the week. There's a lot. You can tell there's a big backlog of stories I need to cover. But yes, the Tory donors are not confident.
I will take it up personally to make sure we get a proper approach to, I think, a very, very important issue.
Ian Blackford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I join you?
The King, he's well dressed today as well. Let's see. Very well dressed today. Let's see what we've got from him.
You and others are remembering today the Falklands conflict of 40 years ago, and those like my colleague Keith Brown, the Scottish Justice Minister that served there, and in particular our thoughts are with those that paid the ultimate sacrifice. Mr. Speaker, yesterday our First Minister started a national conversation on Scotland's right to choose an independent future. When we look at nations
Again, phones, really?
like Iceland, Ireland, Norway and Denmark, it is clear that our neighbours are outperforming the United Kingdom. They deliver greater income equality, lower poverty rates, higher productivity, social mobility and business investment. Mr. Speaker, the list goes on and on. The evidence is overwhelming. Scotland is being held back by Westminster. Prime Minister, all those countries can use the powers of independence to create wealthier, fairer and greener societies. Why not Scotland?
They could use the oil sales, put it in a sovereign fund, just like Norway have done. Even like the Saudis have done that as well, the sovereign wealth fund. So they can invest that money in trying to help the people within their countries rather than privatising it and allowing private companies to make money. So I hope Scotland gets independence. If that's what they want, then I hope it happens. They keep shouting Blackford down. That'll definitely get Scotland on side. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, she's announced it. I don't know whether I should cover it or not. The thing with Scottish issues are I typically stay. When it comes to issues like national self-determination, I try and stay away from those because I feel like that's not my. I shouldn't really be getting involved in those. I think like if you want independence, you should it should be on the table. Same for the Catalans and the Basque region in Spain. For example, if they want to be independent, then I don't think a national government should stand in their way.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I don't doubt my right honourable friend's talents as a conversationalist, but I think there are other subjects in the national conversation right now, and they include, Mr. Speaker, what we're doing to come through the aftershocks of COVID with the strongest jobs-led recovery of any European economy. As I said, 620,000 more people across the whole of the UK, Mr. Speaker, in payroll employment than there were before the pandemic began. And I think another subject of national conversation is investment into our whole country, investment in Scotland, investment across the whole of the UK, as I mentioned already, in the tech centre. And the whole of the UK standing strong together on the international stage and sticking up for the Ukrainians. I think that's some of the things that the country is also talking about, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister.
Yes, stronger together. Has the Prime Minister seen the pound? I think the financial markets are giving their judgment on this Prime Minister.
Yeah, the pound is not doing great. The pound is not doing great at all. Stronger together. That's something. Who pushed that? Was that the anti-Scottish? Was that the unionist argument against Scotland? Stronger together. Was that Hillary Clinton who said that? I can't remember. It sounds like a really one of those really milquetoast statements.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister can afford to live in his own little world, his own little Britain. But people have to.
What Priti Patel said? Do you think she said, "Yeah, we can deport him"?
Afford to live in his own little world.
What do you think she said there?
His own little Britain. But people have to live with the reality of a failing Westminster system. A cost of living crisis worse in the UK than any other G7 country. And inflation.
Is it worse than the Americans? The vaccine rollout, that old chestnut again. He didn't say vaccine rollout, did he? I don't think he did. Maybe I'm not paying enough attention.
Rate double that of France. The second worst economic growth forecast in the G20, next to only sanction Russia. And now, a threat of a trade war with our European friends.
Yeah, it's going to push up imports as well. It's going to push up the cost of imports. And we do import the majority of our... Excuse me, a big yawn.
Triggered by a law-breaking Prime Minister. That is not a vision for the future of Scotland. Our nation is big enough, rich enough and smart enough. Isn't it the case, Prime Minister, that Scotland simply can't afford to remain trapped in the failing Westminster system? Mr. Speaker, stop the Scotland wants to get on.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker,
I would have said stop the union. Scotland wants to get off.
I think that the figures speak for themselves. The UK has record numbers of people in payroll employment. That's an astounding thing when you consider where we were during the pandemic. That was because of the UK working well together, as he will remember, with the vaccine rollout, with the testing.
Vaccine rollout. What did I put for my bingo? Fast growing economy. Fastest vaccine rollout.
Which Scotland and the rest of the country cooperated brilliantly. And Mr. Speaker, he talks about a trade war. He talks about a trade war. What could be more foolish, Mr. Speaker, than a project that actually envisages trade barriers within parts of the United Kingdom? That's what we're trying to break down.
Craig Tracy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During the Jubilee celebrations, I was honoured to share part of them with Cohort 4, an inspirational mentoring and support group who provide life-changing support to a wide range of women, such as those who've tragically been the victim of domestic violence, sexual abuse, or suffer from mental health difficulties. Sadly, as a result of the pandemic, the need for these services has only grown. So would the Prime Minister join me in thanking Beverly and her team for the incredible work that they do at Cohort 4 and set out what more government can do to support these organisations so they can continue to deliver the vital care to vulnerable men and women across all of our constituencies.
We can send them, we can applaud them and bang teapots for them, but we're not actually going to give them more financial money because we're Tories.
I thank my honourable friend. I want to extend my thanks also to Beverly and everybody. I thank my honourable friend.
This guy here is so weird. Like you just catches your eye.
I want to extend my thanks also to Beverly and everybody in Cohort 4 for what they're doing. There's the extra support that we're giving includes £140 million of funding for victims' services and 47 million ring-fence, particularly for organisations such as Cohort 4. Thank you to Cohort 4 and similar organisations for everything that they do.
Ed Davey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I join the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition in paying tribute to our armed forces and sending our thanks and gratitude to the veterans of the Falklands War and their families? Mr. Speaker, millions of families across our country
This man here looks like he's just lost a load in trade shares.
Are suffering because of the cost of living emergency. And people in rural areas are especially hurting.
Why are they chanting for it? I don't get it.
Bearing the brunt of record fuel price rises. The Rural Fuel Duty Relief Scheme is supposed to help by taking money off the price of petrol. But some rural counties aren't eligible. Like Cumbria, like Shropshire, and like Devon.
What is going on here? What is he saying? That's such a stitch.
Mr.
What is this?
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party want to hear ideas to help those people, and I think the people of Devon will note.
You know, the constituency, the new election that's coming up, the by-election, Hornington and Trivington, or Trivington and Hornington, whichever way it goes. Yeah, that one there is a rural area, as far as I'm aware, and maybe the Conservatives should listen because there's a by-election coming up in that seat.
Because there are families and pensioners across rural counties who are missing out on this support. So, Mr. Speaker, as petrol prices soar, will the Prime Minister accept our idea to help people in rural counties and expand?
If I did that, Varas, I wouldn't be able to talk to you, would I? Or talk to the audience, would I?
Rural fuel duty relief.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we've cut fuel duty for everybody across the country by record sums. He talks about pensioners, Mr. Speaker. We're giving £850 more to every pensioner across the country. And
you've seen how much the bills are going up by, though. It's not even going to dent.
He talks about the cost of energy. Everybody is going to get another £400 to help them with the costs.
Yeah, per household. So if you're the owner of the household, you get the money, as far as I'm aware. And if you own multiple houses, you get multiple money. So it's not going to help the people who need it the most.
Energy. And the blissful fact about the Liberal Democrats is because people don't actually know what their policies are. And they're able to go around the country. They're able to go around the country bamboozling the rural communities, not revealing that they're in fact in favour of massive new green taxes, Mr. Speaker, which is what they want, and not revealing that they would like to go back straight away into the common agricultural policy with all the bureaucracy and all the costs that entails. They don't say that on the doorstep, Mr. Speaker.
In fairness, the Lib Dems do run very weird kind of by-elections where, you know, in their manifesto they'll talk about how they support HS2, but then when they go into constituents they're like, we support HS2 but not here. It's really funny, to be honest. It's a great phenomenon, worth keeping your eye out for.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. There are proposals for up to 10,000 housing units on flood-prone greenfield sites to the west of Ifield in my constituency that would also represent intolerable pressure on local services. Can I have an assurance from the Prime Minister that as we update planning legislation, we will enshrine the brownfield principle first for new developments and save our environment and our services?
So what brownfields are is land that's already been built on, rather than greenfields, which are land that hasn't been built on. So, you know, using up brownfield makes a lot more sense. The only problem is it's expensive to kind of break it all down, and also you've got to be careful of chemicals, because some of the, especially the older buildings, might be listed, but also some of them are built with asbestos. Now, asbestos, if you leave it, it's okay, I think, but once it's disturbed, it can give you cancer. That's why you need specialists to deal with it. Yes, Lucy, that is a preemptive attack on the Lib Dems. It's very good ear there you've got, which is you know, because they're facing off against the Lib Dems in Trivington on the 23rd of June, it makes sense to attack the Lib Dems.
Prime Minister.
My honourable friend is completely right, and we encourage the use of suitable brownfield land, and our policy is for brownfield first, everywhere and always.
Neil Hanby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the Prime Minister will know from my recent correspondence that my Kirkcaldy and Cowdenbeath constituent, Ruth Zuccarello, is the sister of Jim Fitton, who is currently imprisoned in Iraq and sentenced to 15 years.
On this thing where, you know, Liz Truss has a lot on her remit and she's not very intelligent, so it makes her job a lot more difficult. She's the de facto Brexit minister and she's the foreign minister, which one of those roles is difficult enough, especially given the context of the current situation happening now. You know what? Like, she shouldn't have the role of Brexit minister. That's what I'm trying to say here. What do my family see in Boris that want to keep voting for him? Maybe they think he's handsome. I don't know.
For collecting some shards of pottery. The judge passing sentence did not believe that Mr. Fitton had any criminal intent. And this has obvious and significant implications for Jim and his loved ones. So I would ask.
So this is about a gentleman who went to Iraq. He allegedly took some shards from the ground. He tried to take them out of Iraq on his way home. He was a geologist, I think. And apparently in Iraq you're not allowed to do that. And so he was arrested for smuggling, and I think he's been given 15 years. Now, the British government can't really involve themselves in the judiciary, a foreign country's judiciary. That's not very good. It's not a good thing to do. They can talk to the Iraqi government. They can get this guy the best representation they can. But at the end of the day, when you go to other countries, you have to understand the rules. That's the top of it, especially in developing countries where, you know, police can play fast and loose with things. I'm not saying they can't do that in developed countries as well. They do, but in developing countries, bribes are a lot more easily, you know, to be given out, etc. But yeah, we'll listen to this man's question.
Ask the Prime Minister if he would be willing to meet with me and other MPs who have constituents in Jim's family to discuss this case, so that we can work in concert to resolve some of those issues.
Well, I'm really grateful to the Honourable Gentleman for raising Mr. Fitton's case, and I have a great deal of sympathy, I must say, with him. I'll make sure that he gets the right Honourable Gentleman gets a meeting with the relevant minister as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of my youngest constituents, little Nellie Oakshott, is 2 years old and has been diagnosed with metachromatic leukodystrophy. Her very brave parents, Megan and Tom, are supporting a campaign to see MLD added to the newborn blood spot test. Had that been included in the test, Nellie's condition could be treated. Now, the family are squaring up to palliative care and planning to...
Yeah, Lucy, it's true that, English people do see people in the upper classes as kind of eccentric and... what's it called? Eccentric? Is that how you pronounce that word? Eccentric, that's the one. Traditional or quaint. It's part of our national character. It's true that, working class people do see people above them as better than them because they have money and they speak with better accents. They are a little bit more posh and more softly spoken. How's that for some ASMR for you guys? Is that ASMR? I don't know. But yeah, you're right, Lucy.
To make every day count. Will the Prime Minister give his support to add MLD to this heel prick test so that families in the future can be spared this same heartbreak?
That's one of the good things about PMQs is you can bring these sorts of cases directly to the Prime Minister, make it public and get it on record that the Prime Minister said they would do something about it, and the fact that the families can see this and hold people accountable as well.
I thank her very much, and I know that the thoughts of everybody will be with Nellie and her parents, Tom and Megan, in a very, very difficult time. And what I can tell her is that the National Screening Committee has received a request to look again at the conditions for doing an MLD test, and that is currently being reviewed right now. But I will make sure that she gets a meeting as soon as possible with the relevant minister.
Liz Twist.
Mr. Speaker, in just 5 days, rail passengers across the UK and in the North East will be facing huge disruption.
There we go. This one's to brew up the Tory base and the backbenchers. That's what this question's for.
Do you want to listen? No, we don't. But on the eve of the biggest rail dispute in a generation, it's emerged that ministers have not held any talks whatsoever since March.
It tells you that ministers don't care. Do you remember they could have stopped? They could have done something with the P&O stuff. They were given a day's extra notice than I think the unions were. They could have done something about it, and they didn't. It's ridiculous.
So, Mr. Speaker, I ask the Prime Minister.
You've done out.
I ask the Prime Minister.
Transport Secretary
has he met with trade unions and employers in the rail industry to attempt to bring this dispute to an end? Yes or no?
Odds on he's going to blame Labour for this.
Mr. Speaker, I noticed that what one union baron was asked about this. He said, "I don't negotiate with the Tory government."
Get lost. They said that. No, I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe some unnamed quote union baron said, "I don't negotiate with Tory governments." That's a load of rubbish. Because if he is doing that, that goes against what the unions are meant to do, which is fight for workers. And the only way they're going to do that is through negotiations with their employer and potentially the government. That's a load of rubbish. That genuinely sounds like a load of rubbish, in my opinion.
That's what they said, Mr. Speaker. We all know how much money the Labour front bench take from the RMT, Mr. Speaker. We know why they're sitting on their hands during Labour's rail strikes. They should come out and condemn it, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today.
What did he say? Do you guys hear that? That wasn't a clever what? Is there subtitles? Let's try this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is pension credit.
I can't quite hear it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I can't hear it. I don't know what he said. That wasn't a clever something.
Today is Pension Credit Awareness Day. Pension credit is currently underclaimed. Around a quarter of those entitled don't claim it. So all my right honourable friends join me in encouraging people in Gedling and throughout the country to check their eligibility, make that claim so we can get more money into the pockets of pensioners.
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, it's a very, very worthwhile and important campaign that my honourable friend supports. Too many pensioners fail to take up their entitlements under pension credit.
Is it the pensioners' fault though? Like, what mechanisms do you have to tell people that they're eligible for pension credit? Honestly.
It can be worth another £3,300 a year, and the more we can do to make pensioners aware of it, the better.
Anna Mackmore.
Thank you. Why Why is it that the worst people often rise to the highest office and stay there? Not my words about the Prime Minister, but those of his newest appointment, his cost of living czar. Families across Cardiff North, crippled with skyrocketing bills, unable to afford even the most basic...
Yeah, they would want to abolish the unions, but the thing is, at the end of the day, they have to talk to each other. That's the only way to really get a dispute settled, is through communication, as Pete Capaldi, as Doctor Who pointed out.
Basic necessities all agree with him, saying this Prime Minister has to go. So if his own czar doesn't even have faith in him, tell me why those struggling should.
Tories love the czars.
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, she's asked that question repeatedly, but let me just remind her that this is a government that gets on and delivers on our promises to the people, and in particular, getting Brexit done. I read the other day...
Damn it, I didn't have Get Brexit Done.
Speaker, that she wants to go back into the single market and into the customs union. I think if that's the real policy of the Labour Party, Mr. Speaker.
She's a backbencher, so that's not going to be Labour Party policy, is it? It's one person's ideals. It's just like Tobias Ellwood doesn't set out Tory Party policy. What a ridiculous statement, honestly.
Going back into the EU, then why won't the leader of the opposition admit it?
But Timpson. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. When our family adopted my two brothers in the 1980s, support for adopters, whether that be financial, therapeutic or professional, was minimal. And by the time I became a family law barrister in the late 1990s, it really wasn't much better. Efforts since, particularly the Adoption Support Fund from 2015 onwards, has improved the situation, but as ever, there's much more that we can do. And to that end, would my right honourable friend look at making self-employed adopters eligible for statutory adoption pay so they can also have a better and fairer start to family life?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable friend, and he's a great champion for adopters and all those who help give children a loving and stable home. We've so far focused on supporting, he's quite right, we're focused on supporting employed parents, but local authorities do have the power to provide discretionary payments equivalent to maternity allowance for self-employed adopters as well.
Gary McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know that at times of economic hardship, suicide rates are likely to rise too. We saw that after the 2008 crash. So as well as doing more to support people through the cost of living crisis, will the Prime Minister commit to doing more to support excellent suicide prevention campaigns like CALM, the campaign against living miserably, and also implement Labour's pledge that anyone in need of it should be able to access mental health counselling within a month, an end to waiting lists?
You know, the waiting lists, I think, at the moment are like 6 months to get, someone to help you with your mental health. 6 months is a long time. That's way too long. So, yeah, great question from her.
Prime Minister.
She's entirely right, Mr. Speaker, and we must focus ever more on mental health. That's why we're putting another £2.3 billion into supporting mental health services, including suicide prevention. And
where's that money actually going, though? £2.3 billion isn't a lot for the entire country, is it? The entire union. So where's that money going? That's the question.
The many wonderful charities that help people with their conditions, Mr. Speaker. And all I can say is it would be a good thing if across the floor of this House we had support for the spending that we're putting in.
David Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The conflict in Ukraine and the consequent disruption of the supply chain in wheat has highlighted the need for the United Kingdom to become more self-sufficient in food. The Genetic Technology Bill, which has its second reading this afternoon, will help create the conditions to enable English farmers to produce more food of higher quality. But
with the genetic modification thing, that's going to cause a lot of issues with our exports if we start doing that. The GMO food's banned by, as far as I'm aware, because I've covered it recently, it's banned by local government. So effectively, in the EU, GMOs, or I think genetically modified crops are allowed, but it has to go through a regulator, and individual states can ban them. So the simple fact is, in England, they can allow it, but if they allow it in England, it can cause problems with our exports to the EU, for example, because then the EU are going to be like, well, is this genetically modified? You're going to have to prove that, and it will cause problems with our exports to the rest of the union as well. So it's not a good idea.
Does my right honourable friend agree that the drive to self-sufficiency requires a UK-wide effort? And will he urge the devolved administrations to adopt the provisions of the bill so that farmers across Britain can produce the food that the country needs?
Prime Minister.
My honourable friend is completely right that currently the policy, of course, the bill only applies to England. He's completely right, but in a loving and sharing way, we are going to work with the devolved administrations, Mr. Speaker, so that the whole of the UK can enjoy the benefits.
Sorry, champion.
Grant Shapps is the Tsar, isn't he? Remember, he's got multiple personalities. He dude loves a persona. It could be Grant Shapps.
Mental health support is vital for victims of sexual crimes. When a Rotherham survivor, who's here today, reported her childhood abuse to the police, they told her not to go for counselling as it could be used against her in court. Yes. Your Attorney General is challenging the rules, so it's even easier for defence teams to access victims' counselling notes, having an immediate chilling effect. Survivors shouldn't be forced to choose between their mental health and justice. Prime Minister, please stop this.
Yes. She's correct on that one, and the fact that, people have been asked to wait until after their court hearings, after the court cases, to get counselling, when these court cases can take up to around 3 to 4 years. That's a great point she made there.
Well, I'm very interested to hear what she says, and I will look at the evidence that she has. But these are very sensitive and very difficult issues, particularly as regards the defence cases. But if she looks at what's happening, for instance, on rape and serious sexual offences, where we've had very similar problems, we are starting to see gradually an improvement in the prosecution rates, and that is because governments across departments across Whitehall working together to take account of victims' needs. And I agree that progress isn't everything that I would like, but we are seeing progress.
Progress is trash, mate. It's absolute trash. Honestly, oops. Oh, crap. That's my bad. I deleted a comment by accident. Sorry about that. It's absolute rubbish. Honestly, it's genuinely rubbish. The prosecution rates, I think, of around 3% or something like that. It's crazy low.
My right honourable friend may be aware that the Shrewsbury and Telford Hospital Trust has recently submitted a revised outline business case in support of its £312 million capital allocation made by the Department of Health 4 years ago. Does he agree with me that in order to make progress and complete the ambitious hospital building programme, the NHS decision-making processes not only need to be levelled up, they need to be speeded up?
Prime Minister.
I think, Mr. Speaker, that the right honourable gentleman certainly speaks for many in this House in wanting faster decisions on planning in the NHS. But what you also, and that's what we're doing, we're pushing through, as he knows, 40 hospitals by 40 hospitals we are building, Mr. Speaker. And what that needs is the funding.
Realistically, if the Prime Minister is meant to address the Speaker, surely the microphone or a microphone should be on that side as well, because I can barely hear the guy. Did I put the volume down?
And I just tactfully point out again, the opposition benches bellowing away. They voted against the extra 39 billion that we're putting in.
They voted against the national insurance increase because you're using that to, cover the fact that you wasted 32 billion on test and trace. So, okay then.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My constituent, Mr. Singh's identity has been stolen. His NHS records are being misused, but he's been advised there is nothing the Health Secretary can do. Crimes are being committed in his name. The Home Secretary's department assured him that this would not affect his immigration status. Yet recently, he, his wife and children were detained by UK Border Force whilst travelling for a family holiday. Can the Prime Minister explain who in his government is responsible for this chaotic incompetence?
So you've got a case of identity fraud by the looks of it, where crime has been committed under this person's name. His immigration status is in doubt by the sounds of it. The Home Office told him, "Don't worry about it, it's fine," and then we find out it's not fine. Not great.
Mr. Speaker, I'd be only too happy to look at and I'm very sorry for the experience that Mr. Singh and his family have had. And I should ask who's responsible. I'm responsible, Mr. Speaker, and but I will look at the case. I'll make sure that she gets a proper answer from the Home Office and the Immigration Department.
Hey, thanks, man. I really appreciate that super chat. Thank you so much. You didn't have to do that. Thank you. Ambitious program. Is he laughing? Is he having a laugh? 40 new hospitals. Yeah, it's about 8, I think, or 7. The rest are refurbishments, which is a bit crazy. They're only going to refurbish 7 hospitals. Around 33 hospitals in the space of 5 years. So that's not great.
Theresa May.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I can't pronounce your name. Is it Christie? I don't want to butcher it, but yeah, thank you, man.
My constituent, Dominique Davis, is the niece of Dom Phillips, the British journalist missing in Brazil.
Is Theresa May going for the Cantona look with the collar up? Wild. Didn't think Theresa May was the Cantona type. I mean, that's definitely a collar up, isn't it?
Alongside the Indigenous expert Bruno Pereira. Will my right honourable friend ensure that the government makes this case a diplomatic priority and that it works to do everything it can to ensure that the Brazilian authorities put the resources necessary to uncover the truth and find out what has happened to Dom and Bruno?
I think it was 2. I can't remember exactly what their roles were, but they were found. They found 2 bodies recently, but the police are denying that it was the 2 people who went missing. I see what Theresa May's problem is now. It's one collar is flicked up and the other one's flicked down.
I thank her, my right honourable friend very much, and I can tell her that
bold patch is getting really bad. I know we're not meant to point it out, especially as men, but that bold patch is getting really bad.
For representing the niece of Dom Phillips, and of course, like everybody in this House, we're deeply concerned about what may have happened to him. FCDO officials are working closely now with the Brazilian authorities following his disappearance on the 5th of June. The minister responsible has raised the issue repeatedly.
It must be, because I saw the story on the BBC homepage 2 days ago where the police said they found 2 bodies, but they haven't confirmed if it's the 2 people who went missing. So yeah, they really need to figure out what the hell's going on over there, because that's not fair on the families. Not fair at all.
Search and rescue effort with Brazil's Justice and Public Security Minister, and what we've told the Brazilians, Mr. Speaker, is we stand ready to provide, Madam Deputy Speaker, I should say, we stand ready to provide.
They had a substitution.
All the support that they may need.
When did they change out? I'm so confused. Why is there a substitution here?
Thank you. Point of order, Elaine Saxby.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I just wondered if you could advise how I could correct the record for the Right Honourable Member for Kingston and Surbiton's question, where he raised the matter of rural fuel duty relief and incorrectly advised that it was not available in Devon, and that in my North Devon constituency that I clearly know quite well on this side of the House, the EX35...
Oh, that's in relation to Ed Davies' question.
Postcode of Linton, their fuel retailers have had access to this duty for some time.
Maybe it wasn't Lindsay. Maybe maybe he was a shapeshifter, or maybe Lindsay Hoyle was never there in the first place. I don't know.
How might we address this situation, Madam Deputy Speaker?
Well, order. I thank the honourable lady for her point of order. The chair is not responsible for points made by honourable and right honourable members, but she has put her concerns on the record, so I suggest
a hologram potentially.
We leave it at that. Further to that point of order, Sir Edward Davey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the honourable lady for raising the point, not directly, I think, of pointing out that vast parts of Devon don't have rural fuel duty relief.
She used to be MP for North Devon, so he said, parts of Devon don't have it. So technically, he's not 100% wrong, unless the vast majority of Devon do have access. I'm grasping at straws.
Yeah, I think this is becoming a continuation of Prime Minister's question, so we will leave it at that. Point of order, Yasmin Qureshi.
Yes, Madam Deputy Speaker. In the Prime Minister's questions,
The Prime Minister said that the leader of the opposition was a supporter of people traffickers. I think that should be taken out of record.
It's disgrace.
Disgrace, yeah.
Well, I thank the
We've got Annalise Dodds running up.
Honourable Lady for her point of order. Frankly, the level of noise during PMQs meant it was not possible for the chair to hear everything.
That's ridiculous. Lindsay Hoyle's a massive coward. That's the reason why he didn't say anything. That's why. He's a massive coward, in my opinion.
But I understand that the Prime Minister, as she says, did say that the opposition was on the side of people traffickers. That seems to me, and I have to say to the Speaker, to fall well short of the good temper and moderation
British pageantry at its finest.
which should characterise our debates. And
Yes, it
I
is.
say to the Prime Minister and to all members here, we need to refer to each other in this place in more respectful terms. And I'm sure
Luckily I don't. He's an idiot.
that in that spirit will be adopted in the statement to come. Point of order.
Madam Deputy Speaker, as Chair of the International Trade Committee...
We'll go for about 15:15, maybe 30:30, I don't know. I've got a video I need to... I've got a couple of videos I need to sort out, so I'll say probably around 15:15. We'll see how this goes. If it's really boring, we'll cut it early.
Dismay of the committee that we found out that the government was to trigger the CRAG process on the Australia-UK FTA before the
It's Jeremy Corbyn.
scrutiny was finished. This, in light of assurances to the Speaker of the House in a letter, assurances on the floor of the House on the 17th of November 2021 at the dispatch book from a Minister of the DIT and also to the committee itself that that scrutiny would be allowed to happen before CRAG was triggered. This has not happened. What is happening is the UK is opening and rolling out the red carpet to Australian exporters to the UK, while Australia is not ratifying. Madam Deputy Speaker, we and the committee feel there should be a vote at very least to delay CRAG. Can you advise us how best we can...
What the hell is CRAG? I'm sorry, I can't understand his accent. Can anyone translate? What is CRAG?
Achieve that end.
What's CRAG?
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for his point of order. It has not related directly to PMQs, so it should actually have been taken later. But he has, obviously, ministers should stick to commitments that they have made, and I'm sure he will find a number of ways.
Sorry, Viking, I still don't know. Committee revenue. I'm not
in
sure
order
what that
to
is.
further the points that he has made. Thank you. Statement, Home Secretary Priti Patel.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And with permission, I would like to make a statement about the government's world-leading migration and economic development partnership with Rwanda. The British people have repeatedly voted for controlled immigration and the right to...
Can I hit 1.25 speed on this, please? I don't want to... No, I didn't expect this. Can I 1.25 speed it? I might have to. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm sorry.
secure borders, Madam Deputy Speaker. This is a government that acts and
it's
hears
too
that
fast.
message
It's too
clearly,
fast.
and we are determined to deliver that. Last night, Madam Deputy Speaker, we aimed
too
to
fast.
relocate the first people from our country who arrived here through dangerous and illegal means,
Okay, got you. I got you now.
including by small boat. Over the course of this week, many and various claims to prevent relocation have been brought forward. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, I welcome the decisions of our domestic courts, the High Court, the Court of Appeal and Supreme Court to uphold our right to send the flight. However, following a decision by an out-of-hours judge in the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg, minutes before our flight's departure, the final individuals remaining on the flight had their removal directions paused while their claims were considered.
Well, that must have annoyed her a lot.
I want to make something absolutely clear today, Madam Deputy Speaker. The European Court of Human Rights did not rule that the policy or relocations were unlawful, but they prohibited the removal of 3 of those on last night's flight. Those prohibitions last for different time periods, but are not an absolute bar on their transfer to Rwanda. Anyone who's been ordered to be released by the courts will be tagged while we continue to progress their relocation. While this decision by the Strasbourg court to intervene was disappointing,
she calls it the Strasbourg court, to show it's a foreign court. Strasbourg, isn't it? Strasbourg isn't it in the UK?
And surprising given the repeated and considered judgments to the contrary in our domestic courts, we remain committed to this policy. These repeated legal barriers are, Madam Deputy Speaker, very similar to those that we experience with all other removal flights, and we believe that we are fully compliant with our domestic and international obligations, and preparations for our future flights and the next flights have already begun. Our domestic courts were of the view that the flight could go ahead. Madam Deputy Speaker, the case for our partnership with Rwanda bears repeating. We are a generous and welcoming country, as has been shown time and time again.
We're really not. Honestly, we're not.
Over 20,000 people
her parents might have been refugees and been accepted in this country, but she will not accept others.
Have used safe and legal routes to come to the UK since 2015. And most recently, Madam Deputy Speaker, Britons have opened their hearts and their homes to Afghan nationals and Ukrainian nationals. But our capacity to help those in need is severely compromised by those who come here illegally. And as we've discussed in this House...
So open up safe points of entry. Open up legal points of entry then. The only reason they're coming here is illegally because they don't have a choice. And it's not illegal to claim asylum. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, honestly.
Many, many times who seek to jump the queue because they can afford to pay the people smugglers. It is illegal.
They're not trying to jump the queue. It's because the only way they can claim asylum in the UK is by being in the UK, being in the UK's jurisdiction. That's it. If you open up safe and legal points of entry, that wouldn't be happening. Ridiculous.
It is not necessary because they are coming from other safe countries. It is not fair either on those who play by the rules or on the British taxpayers who have to foot this bill. We cannot keep on spending nearly £5 million a day on accommodation, including that of hotels.
Because you haven't built proper accommodation to deal with asylum seekers. That's why you're paying hotels. Ridiculous, honestly. If you build proper places for asylum seekers, you wouldn't have this many problems.
We cannot accept this intolerable pressure on public services and local communities. It makes us less safe as a nation because those who come here illegally do not have the regularised checks or even the regularised status. And because evil people smuggling gangs use the proceeds of their ill-gotten gains to fund other appalling crimes that undermine the security.
Again, the only reason they're paying people smugglers is because there's no safe points of entry to the UK. That's why. They have no other means of getting here, so they pay people to get them here. It's not hard to figure out, Patel. Let's be honest.
Of our country.
I'm just going to see
or
how
at least not a morally responsible one.
Here we go. We're going to skip to Yvette Cooper because I can't deal with this. It's just absolute nonsense.
Speaker, this is a shambles, and it is shameful, and the Home Secretary has no one but herself to blame. This is not, and never has been, a serious policy, and she knew that when she chartered the plane. She knew that among the people she was planning to send to Rwanda on this plane were torture and trafficking victims. She knew she didn't have a proper screening process in place. She knew that some of them might be children. So can she confirm it was the Home Office itself that withdrew a whole series of these cases on Friday and yesterday because they knew there was a problem with these cases, that even without the European Court of Human Rights judgment, she was planning to send a plane with just 7 people on board because she'd had to withdraw most of the cases at the last minute.
And I wonder if that was down to the fact that she knew the ECHR would have got involved. I wonder if she left those 7 on the plane because she didn't think that the ECHR would get involved at that point. Because if that's the case, that's a bit of a game changer. No, because Liz Truss is actually funny. Look, Liz Truss says stuff like this. Where's it gone? Oh, I've lost it. No! Oh, man. Where is it? I've lost it. Where are you gone? Liz Truss says stuff like this, so we can't skip through what Liz Truss says, because this is hilarious.
Encourage the Irish TSOC to prevent the Irish TSOC.
Get it? It's Taoiseach, but she said it wrong. That's why it's funny.
She knows that there is a lack of proper...
Go for about this is actually pretty interesting. 1:15, I reckon we'll go for. We'll see how long.
Asylum capacity in Rwanda to make fair decisions. That, as the UNHCR says, they only normally deal with a few hundred cases a year. There's normally only one eligibility officer who prepares the cases, and that's as well as the lack of interpreters or legal advice to ensure fair decisions. Now, she promised there will be extra payments to Rwanda for each person that is transferred, presumably to pay for those extra caseworkers or extra support. But she still refused to tell us how much. So what is she hiding? Will she tell us now how much she promised Rwanda for each of the people she was planning to send yesterday, and how many Rwandan refugees she promised
looks like a what? Tanks.
To take
when a coffee stocking is not a coffee stocking, it's a tea sock. Exactly.
In return. She knows that serious concerns have been raised about Rwandan.
If I could do it right, if I had I think a much bigger following, I would have done that as a temporary merch thing. Tea socks. I think that would have been hilarious. The temporary kind of merch thing. It'd been pretty great. Yeah, she does look pretty angry.
Restrictions on political freedom, on the treatment of people who are LGBT, on the fact that 12 refugees were shot by the authorities in 2018 for protesting against food cuts, on the fact that there have been Afghan and Syrian asylum seekers returned by Rwanda, and she knows that none of those concerns have been addressed. She knows too that the policy will not work. We need action to tackle dangerous criminal gangs who are putting lives at risk.
It's tempting. It's tempting to do something on Teespring. It's tempting.
But she knows that her policies won't achieve that, and that is not their objective. Because if it was, she would not have asked the National Crime Agency, whose job it is to target the criminal gangs, to draw up 20% staff cuts. That is potentially 1,000 people.
Hang on. Too busy laughing at Liz Truss. What's this?
We need action to tackle dangerous criminal gangs who are putting lives at risk. But she knows that
Big boy, shut up, bruv. I'm trying to listen to Cooper.
her policies won't achieve that, and that is not their objective. Because if it was, she would not have asked the National Crime Agency, whose job it is to target the criminal gangs, to draw up 20% staff cuts. That is
Right, the National Crime Agency have looked into... so they're trying to cut the National Crime Agency, whose job is meant to look into people smugglers. That makes sense, doesn't it, Tory party? She's really going after him today.
Potentially 1,000 people being cut from the organisation that works to tackle the gangs. So can she confirm, has she asked the NCA to draw up plans for staff cuts? If she was serious, she would be taking seriously the fact that the Israel-Rwanda deal ended up increasing criminal people trafficking and smuggling, and that her plan risks making things worse. And if it was, she would be working night and day to get a better joint plan with France to crack down on the gangs.
You know, at the end of the day, if we were a part of the EU, we could send people back to France who didn't have proper asylum claims. We've paid money to France, but you know, that beach is a huge beach. What we should be doing is sending more caseworkers over there. We should be sending more caseworkers over there to deal with people's asylum claims so they don't have to make the crossings. You tag them, you get their fingerprints, etc. So if they do make the crossing, in the end, you know that they don't have proper asylum claims. That's what we should be doing, but instead we're not doing that. We're doing this the stupid way, honestly. Don't need the National Crime Agency to check the boat people. You can just issue Farage and a sawn off. Oh my god, no, don't. That's not funny. That's not funny.
And to stop the boats being put into the water in the first place. But she isn't, because her relationship with French ministers has totally broken down. If she was serious about tackling illegal migration, illegal economic migration, or cutting the bills for people in...
It's not. This isn't about illegal people migration, though. I think it's like 70 or 90% of these claims are valid. They have a valid right to claim asylum in the UK. These aren't about economic migrants. I mean, Labour you just piss me off so much, man. You guys suck so badly. Like, how am I supposed to have faith in people who come up with arguments like this? These aren't, the vast majority of them aren't economic migrants. Come on, man.
hotels. She would be speeding up Home Office decision making so refugees can get support and those who aren't can be returned home. Instead, her decisions have totally collapsed from 28,000 a year to just 14,000 decisions a year, fewer than Belgium, the Netherlands, never mind Germany or France. And
It's surprising that we have fewer processing than France because it takes less time to get your asylum claim heard in the UK. It's, I think, around 6 months in the UK and a year and a half in France, probably because France have to deal with more people. So, yeah, I mean, if it's the case that the UK are processing less claims, it's just either we have less people to process or it's just something's wrong. Something's wrong here.
she's so badly failing to take those basic decisions, she is trying to pay a country thousands of miles away to take decisions for us instead.
Yeah, honestly, it's not just the Tory party anymore, it's the Labour Party as well, and it's frustrating, you know, when people are like, oh, you can't criticise the Labour Party, you're helping the Tories. Like, bruv, stop saying dumb stuff like this. How do you expect me to support you when you say dumb stuff like this, when you roll in migrants, asylum seekers and refugees all in the same thing? I mean, come on, man. Come on, man. Honestly, it's ridiculous. They're so desperate to appeal to the red wall that they'll sell out everything. Typical politicians, all they care about is their approval ratings. They've got no principles. You know, lining their own pockets, their approval ratings, nothing else matters to them, apparently. It just makes me furious.
Does that make us look around the world if our Home Office cannot take those basic decisions? She knew about problem after problem. With her policy, she knows this is unworkable, unethical, and won't stop the criminal gangs. But yet, she still went ahead and spent £500,000 chartering a plane she never expected to fly. She still went ahead and wrote a £120 million cheque to Rwanda with a promise of more to come. And she still went ahead because all she really cares about is picking fights and finding someone else to blame.
This is a culture war. That's all she cares about. It's the culture war. It's what keeps the Tories in power.
A long-term plan. It is a short-term
Oh god,
stunt.
this guy has really pissed me off now.
Everyone can see it. It's not serious policy, it's shameless posturing, and she knows it. It's not building consensus, it's just pursuing division. It is government by gimmick. It's not in the public
Government by gimmick, I like that one.
interest, it's just in their political interest. And what are they prepared to trash along the way? People's lives, our basic British values of fairness, decency and common sense, and the reputation of our nation. Our country is better than this. We've a long tradition of hard work and stepping up to tackle problems, not to offload them, to tackle the criminal gangs who put lives at risk, and to do right by refugees. That is what she should be doing now, and not this shambles that is putting our country to shame.
Madam Deputy Speaker, well, I always look forward to these exchanges in the House. It's fair to
You don't look forward to these exchanges. You were the one ducking Yvette Cooper for months in the, I think it was the Home Affairs Select Committee. You know, you do not look forward to these. Oh mate, you're just full of bluster, aren't you?
say, primarily because, well, perhaps if you'd like to listen to them as well. Let me just respond by saying, as a point of education, if I may, for the Honourable
Oh, how condescending is that?
lady opposite, we're not the only country in the world to be adopting this approach.
Yeah, Norway are as well.
It's
I think it's Norway.
So, the Right Honourable Lady may be aware, Madam Deputy Speaker, that it's an approach the EU have adopted through their EU transfer mechanism to Rwanda.
The EU have adopted this as well. I don't think that's true, is it?
Denmark themselves are in the process. Denmark themselves are already in the process of looking at this. But she raises a number of points which are also factually incorrect. I'll come to you shortly, if you don't mind. That the purpose of the work that we are doing is absolutely, Madam Deputy Speaker, to break the business model of the people smugglers.
How is cutting the money to the National Crime Agency going to help that? How is cutting the amount of people who are meant to stop the people smuggling meant to do that? That's not what Denmark is doing. What? So what are Denmark doing then? I'm surprised the company that's in charge of asylum seeker processing is not on a PFI company. They got the contract because they are surprising.
And it's a shame, actually, that the party opposite, run down the National Crime Agency, because actually...
They didn't run down the National Crime Agency. You're the one cutting the funds to it. Oh my god, these people, man, they are genuinely. I think there is an inability to understand English on the Conservative Party front bench. When you say, "Oh, the government are damaging certain agencies or damaging the country," they're like, "How dare you talk down the country?" Like, what? Honestly.
Actually, calm down. Just calm down a second, because
What? Calm down. What? Surely the speaker has to intervene. That's not how you speak to people.
Calm down, just calm down a second, because actually it's the UK intelligence community that are working together, tackling the people smugglers upstream, along with the way in which we invest in upstream programmes to tackle the people
I'm struggling. After this exchange, I'm out. I'm going to cut the stream because this is painful.
smugglers. But Madam Deputy Speaker, I've got more to say on this, of course, because the members opposite keep speaking about asylum seekers that have travelled from Iran, Iraq and other countries. But of course, they've come from France, Madam Deputy Speaker. A safe country. They haven't come from Iraq, they've come from France. In the same way the lady opposite says they've come from Syria. They've come from France. They've paid people smugglers. And they don't claim
So
that it's...
why are they paying people to help them get into the UK? That's the question the Home Office needs to understand. Why is this happening?
Moral to send people back to European countries where their claims can be considered there.
We can't send them back to European countries though, because we're out of Dublin 3 agreement.
It is literally, Madam Deputy Speaker, the logic of the opposition seems to be that Rwanda is a wonderful country, good enough to host international summits and world dignitaries, but not for people to be relocated there.
Have you seen the human rights abuses in Rwanda? Honestly, have you seen it? There are refugees coming out of Rwanda. Is that a country you want to send other people to?
Our global partnership has demonstrated. And they know that people are dying in the Channel, but they simply do not have a single workable solution between them. And they are choosing sides here.
You process people's claims in France. You work with the French government. You put staff over there. You deal with people's claims over there. That's the way to deal with it. Honestly.
While this government is committed to pioneering a way forward. And of course, the party opposite are now clutching at straws when they come to speaking about money. But of course, you cannot put a price on lives that are lost. And we believe in saving lives and breaking the people smuggling model.
If you believed in saving lives, you wouldn't let them put themselves at jeopardy in the first place. The firms running the asylum seeker barracks in Kent stands to earn $1 billion 10-year government contracts to Clear Springs Ready Homes, come into focus after their complaint. I mean, I saw one, what was it called? They put them in Napier Barracks, which was so bad that they stopped housing soldiers there. I saw some of the pictures from that. It was gross. It's just, honestly...
And of course, Madam Deputy Speaker, when it comes to the claims, the legal claims that I think the Honourable Lady was referring to, pre-action protocol, NRM claims, I do not remember the lady opposite, the Shadow Home Secretary, making these points in this sort of synthetic...
27k per annum to deal with people in France, that's not really a high wage to pay. I mean, it makes sense to honestly just process people's claims in France so they don't have to cross the channel, to work with the French and say, look, we'll take this amount of refugees, you can take this amount. If in the first place, right, when this refugee crisis happened, if all the European countries worked together and said, look, we can house this amount of people and we'll help you process the claims or whatever, that would have worked out, but it just didn't happen, did it? It didn't happen. And in the end, people died, and people are still dying because of the ineptitude of developed countries to stop doing stupid wars in developing countries. 27k per asylum seeker, not to the officials. Ooh, that's a lot of money. But yeah, it's a sucky system, honestly.
Hypothetical rage when she occupied the seat in a previous Labour government where they brought in acts and powers and passed the 1999 Act, the 2002 Act, the 2004 Act, basically to remove people with no legal basis to be in this country. And these are the same powers that we are using to remove individuals with no legal right to be in these countries. And of course, these are exactly the same powers that only recently and again today she was saying that could be used if we hadn't
Bingo. 5 companies have won 5.8 billion worth of contracts since 2010 to run asylum and migrant services, despite being beset by complaints and scandals, Byline Times. Just imagine Patel's advisors who are employed to dream up her crappy arguments. A more soulless bunch are hard to imagine. I have to go. Yeah, mate, honestly, go for it. I'm going to cut the stream in a few minutes and probably have a 5-minute break.
EU. And yet again, the Honourable Lady, the party opposite, talks about the policy being unworkable and extortionate, but it can't be both, because clearly we've said from the outset...
Unworkable and extortionate, it can't be both. Yes, it can. Who's writing her team? Is it Rice Gum or something? Who's writing this for her? Listen to this.
The lady, the party opposite, talks about the policy being unworkable and extortionate, but...
Do you understand English? Like, genuinely. Extortionate means what? Overpriced? Extortionate meaning a kind of... Not a good idea. You know, it's extorting someone. Criminal. You know, essentially like a blackmail type thing, right? My English isn't great either. I'm not going to lie. Extortionate, right? And unworkable. Those are not mutually exclusive. Those are not mutually exclusive things. Like, who wrote this for Preet Patel? It reminds me when she did the numbers. Do you remember that? When she did the numbers? Let's see if I can find it. Numbers. Have I got it? Give it a minute. You know, just... Come on. There was a bit where Preet Patel had to read off some numbers and she couldn't do it. I put some... Or do you want PM on Max Discord? Where is it? Patel. Someone say, the numbers. I can't find it. There was like a thing where she said a load of numbers. No, I can't find it. That's unfortunate. Let's see. I'll give it one more go. See if you all... There was a bit where, you know, like, her scripting is really bad. I did more videos on Preet Patel than I realised. There it is. Oh my god, here it is. Here it is. What a classic this is, right? This is vintage. So, this is vintage Big Match Studios right here from 2020. Let's see if I can find the clip. Here it is. You know, her scripting is really bad. Listen to this. What meetings, fam? You think you're Jose Mourinho out here? But I think angry or bitter. I'm not surprised because you've turned down, you know, you've walked what class is. And maybe you guys can figure out what she's trying to say here. This is vintage me. Vintage. You know?
Through the government's ongoing monitoring and testing programme.
You guys ready for this, yeah?
That as of 9 a.m. today...
9 a.m, this was a few days ago.
There have been 300,000...
300,000... 34... 974... 974...
tests carried out.
So I've got the original clip here. I'm pausing way too much. Let's see, here it is. Here it is.
Through the government's ongoing monitoring and testing programme, that as of 9 a.m. today, there
you guys ready?
have been 300,034, 974,000 tests carried out across the UK, excluding North. 300,034, 974,000 tests carried out across the.
I mean, she doesn't. Her ability to read stuff is not great. Yes, something can be extortionate and unworkable at the same time. Those are not mutually exclusive. Come on, pal.
It can't be both, because clearly we've said from the outset, that this is a partnership based on working with Rwanda. And if I may, Madam Deputy Speaker.
I'm like, bro, when we elect our people to government, we do not elect our best people.
There is nothing more humane than turning a blind eye to those that are being smuggled, not just across the channel, but also in lorries. And we have a global collective responsibility to work with international partners, which clearly the party opposite.
I mean, you really rattled most of our connections with people abroad, so she's aiming for a chance of the Exchequer job with those numbers. She really is. Sunak, best watch out.
To shut the door firmly on doing.
So Mike...
One question and we dip.
Much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I say from the outset that I know the Shadow Secretary of State very well, and she's much better than some of those comments that she came out with today. Much
what a load of rubbish this guy's on.
Better. What I say to the Home Secretary, this country has, and as a child I was in school when people came from Vietnam and from Hong Kong previously and from Africa. But this is different. This Parliament is supreme. Our courts have said this is right. This is what the British people wanted us to do. Control immigration coming across in those boats. So how is it right that this court is overruled all of our courts and this Parliament?
My honourable friend, Madam Deputy Speaker, makes some very, very important points, first of all. He speaks to the generosity of our country, and
that's not true. I want to see if we can find an actual decent question.
Legality about the...
Find a decent question, sorry.
It's not the lawyers who caused this flight to be cancelled. Partly...
Actually get the grounds upon which...
Thank you, Madam Deputy.
Hopefully this person here can ask a decent question.
Speaker, my party continues to deplore this unworkable, illegal and immoral policy. And it does nothing to stop smugglers, and it inflicts serious harm on victims despite the Home Secretary's cloud cuckoo land description of it.
Yes, thank you. A good question, a good point, should I say. And the simple fact is they know the probability of the people trying to come here crossing the English Channel know that the likelihood is they're not going to be sent to Rwanda, so it's not going to do anything anyways.
So we wholeheartedly welcome the cancellation of this flight, and we condemn the reckless approach that the Home Secretary has taken.
Have I got my taxi meter running? No, my brain's about to go kaput.
Taxpayers' money, and more importantly to the rule of law. And can I take a moment to commend, in fact, the lawyers involved for their incredible work in the face of some utterly inappropriate commentary from the top of government. And can I ask the Home Secretary to tell her colleagues to heed the call from the Law Society and the Bar Council and stop attacking legal professionals who are simply doing their job.
Attacking, so-called lefty lawyers, etc., who are doing their job.
Because, Madam Deputy Speaker, it's not the lawyers who caused this flight to be cancelled, nor any court. This flight was stopped because of the stench of yet more government illegality. And even the most ardent supporters of this dreadful policy must recognise that there is, to put it mildly, massive dubiety over its lawfulness. UNHCR, guardians of the Refugee Convention, are clear that it is in breach. So to seek to press ahead before the courts have concluded that issue, either way, was a reckless waste of taxpayer money and shows again this government's total disregard for the rule of law.
No, Duke, I'm going to dip in a sec.
So the Home Secretary should call this off now and wait for that court ruling. That is all we are asking in the meantime. And she should start answering the basic questions that we did not get answers to on Monday about oversight, about age assessments, about screening for torture survivors and trafficking victims. This is a dreadful mess. Finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, inevitably this pitiful policy failure will now wrongly be blamed by the usual suspects in the European Convention on Human Rights. So will the Home Secretary recognise what the Prime Minister previously said about the Convention being a great thing? And will she recognise its importance for devolution, for the Good Friday Agreement, for the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, and call on...
Also the fact that, that the Human Rights Act is enshrined within the Good Friday Agreement and also enshrined within the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. Us getting rid of the Human Rights Act will put us in a very bad position.
Off the agitators in her party who want the UK to follow Russia and Belarus through the exit door and onto pariah state status. Thank you.
Brilliant. I don't know who he is, but that was brilliant.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
This is not brilliant. This side here, everyone here on this side, everyone behind this line sucks.
And I think tone is important, actually, if I may say so in this debate. We respectfully disagree with the honourable gentleman.
What? Tone? She was telling people to calm down a few minutes ago.
And his party wholeheartedly. And that is, Madam Deputy Speaker, as we've heard throughout the debates on this subject previously, but also on the Nationality and Borders Act as it now is, thanks to the support that we've had from this side of the House to deal with smuggling and trafficking, but actually to change our laws. It's quite clear, Madam Deputy Speaker, that the party opposite would like to see all removals and all deportations, irrespective of their basis, full stop, and that is obviously their policy, and they would like open borders. But I think...
how does the Speaker not just intervene and say that's not true? You've offered no evidence to actually prove that. It's ridiculous, honestly, the amount they get away with in Parliament.
It is important. I think it is important, Madam Deputy Speaker, if I just put on the record, because this is important, that the European Court of Human Rights did not rule that the policy or removals were unlawful. But they actually prohibited the removal of 3 of those on the flight last night.
3 out of 7, by the way. It's almost half.
At the end. So and if I may say so, we have asked for that ruling in writing, so we're waiting for that. But those prohibitions are different to the other claims that came up from lawyers very last minute, actually, yesterday. And I think
it wasn't as last minute she's making out.
Also important to recognise that the first ruling then provoked those solicitors involved to then go back to the courts to then apply for more injunctions for the remaining people on the manifest. So I think it's important, Madam Deputy Speaker, to take an absolutely proportionate and measured approach before all parties opposite start to condemn a policy that actually the courts have not ruled as unlawful.
Natalie Elphick.
Good question.
Madam Deputy Speaker, last November I stood on Dover's seafront and I mourned 27 people who were drowned in the...
I'm not going to let them use the people who passed away for politics like this. I'm out. I can't. No, not on my channel. Not like this. I'm gonna kill the stream here because probably poor choice of phrasing there. I'm gonna end the stream here because this just I know what she's gonna do, and I'm not gonna stand for it. So yeah. Anyways, thanks everyone who's stayed this long in the stream. Been going for about an hour and a half now, but nah, sorry, not today, buddy. You know, I genuinely detest the people on this side of the house, but look, anyways, thanks for everyone for joining. If you watch this back, thanks. I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.